So I've been thinking a lot about the subject of disenchantment, especially as a result of either deconstructing or deconverting from a worldview. And with the word disenchantment, I have Max Weber's definition in mind, where he's basically talking about a loss of sense of magic in the world as a result of increased scientific rationalism, and even the idea that everything has an explanation in principle, and there's kind of a loss of mystery in that. And it's interesting to note that this loss of sense of magic isn't limited to magic per se of like casting spells. And the way I kind of think about it is that it's really a loss maybe of meaning, and specifically of the type of meaning that inspires awe and wonder in us, and especially things like from the mysteries of life. And and how science can undermine that. So recently I had a change in how I was thinking about this topic of disenchantment, and I kind of felt like, in hindsight, that I've been thinking about it pretty narrowly, and mostly thinking about it in terms of my own personal experience with deconstructing and deconverting from the worldview I was raised with, which was a form of Christianity, with the type of biblical literalist type of Christianity. And that was focused a lot on not only the loss of the meaning from that worldview and where awe and wonder is found in it, but specifically also things like I had a little bit of exposure to the ideas of kind of like Christian mysticism, and specifically things like the idea that all good things in life in the world are basically expressions of God's character, and effectively by experiencing them and reflecting on them, like what does this tell me about God, we could experience God through them. And if you want to go even further, experience God's love for you through these experiences. And it kind of adds this added layer on top of all the things that you're experiencing, and maybe in ways that can inspire a sense of awe and wonder and mystery as well. So that's kind of the particular disenchantment that I experienced. And I somewhat feel like I've been thinking about disenchantment in relation to the loss of that worldview for some people in particular. But more recently, I'm thinking, anybody can experience disenchantment when they question a worldview, because humans were meaning-making creatures. We look for meaning in life, and obviously we experience life through our perception and understanding of life as we, find it, and that is heavily affected by our worldview. And so on top of these experiences we're having and how we understand them through our worldview, we'll build on top of that meaning, and that includes ways that we find and have a sense of awe and wonder and things of that nature. So, but then when we question that worldview, whatever it is, we'll also be undermining and potentially experiencing disenchantment from the meaning offered by that worldview that we're now questioning or possibly losing or departing from. So I actually encountered some examples of where other worldviews can experience disenchantment and then actually experience it as a result of the worldview that I was raised with, basically calling into question those worldviews. So, for example, in the the Old Testament book Isaiah, in chapter 44, there's this whole idea questioning idols and saying, oh, these idols that you're making, to your gods or whatever these other religions were, they're just things made with your hands. They don't have anything to them. They're lifeless. They're dead. And I, just think about that, and I'm like, well, if to someone who's made this idol for their religion, and it's obviously going to have some meaning to them, whether that meaning is something where they feel like now that they've made it, it's like being before a deity, or even if they might think like a deity kind of becomes present with the idol, whatever the nature may be, the idea, the perspective that this biblical prophet or whatever is bringing against it, if they were to adopt that view about their idol, they would surely, I think, experience disenchantment from the prior meaning that they were getting from that experience. Another example is from Ursula Goodenough's book, The Sacred Depths of Nature, and she talks about being raised with, or at least having for most of her life, a more naturalistic worldview, and part of that worldview being one that just sees life broadly as mysterious. And ultimately, in terms of like questions like why is there something rather than nothing, fundamentally, ultimately, the whole universe or the whole cosmos is a mystery. We don't know the answer to that question. And so she's gotten a lot of meaning and awe and wonder from that perspective from her worldview. So for her, if someone comes along and says, oh no, we know the answer. God did it. He made it. For her, that perspective, as a contrast to her own, is disenchanting to the meaning and awe and wonder that she gets from her worldview, seeing life as fundamentally mysterious. I also imagine that Ursula, as a scientist, values not only the mystery, but also the desire to seek out and discover and learn that mystery inspires, especially for someone like a scientist, and try to find the real answers to questions and mysteries in life. And feels like not only is the mystery stolen, but even maybe that desire to seek out and discover the truth by just assuming that we already know the answer. So humans find meaning in life, and we get that built on top of our understanding of the world, our worldview. We question that worldview. That meaning can also be something that we're disenchanted of. But if each worldview can offer different meaning and different ways of getting awe and wonder and have a sense of mystery about things, then the new worldview that we're moving towards, if we lean into it and figure out the meaning that it offers from its perspective, we can also experience a form of re-enchantment as a part of changing perspectives and changing worldviews. And lastly, as a bonus to this, we also still have the perspectives of other worldviews and the kind of enchantments that they can offer, whether it's a worldview that we used to have or one that we've never actually personally subscribed to. We can actually experience things from those perspectives, through the eyes of a different perspective by using our imagination. The same way we do every time we enter a movie theater, see a movie, especially maybe a movie that involves magic, like a fantasy film, or read a book of that kind. We're able to enter into a different type of world or use our imagination to see things from a different kind of perspective or experience a completely different world in some movies. But in a similar way, we can use our imagination, and I can still put on the glasses of how I used to see things as a Christian and still imagine, what if I looked at the world through that way? What would that feel like? And kind of experience those enchantments. But in the context of consciously using our imagination, not necessarily subscribing to or actually believing in those perspectives. So now that I'm a humanist, I've been exploring some, what kind of enchanting kind of perspectives of awe and wonder are offered by the worldview that I now subscribe to. And a couple examples of ones that appeal to me are, for one, just the discovery in the natural sciences of dinosaurs and that they once existed. I find the general idea of just imagining dinosaurs roaming the earth, for example, to be in a very magical kind of experience or feeling, just imagining what that would have been like very awe-inspiring. And I consider that some people and places and culture and times in history would not have known what we do about dinosaurs existing and would not have been able to imagine or experience the awe and wonder of being aware of that being something that happened on the earth. Now, there's a use of the imagination. We obviously can't see them roaming on the earth right now. But it's still an experience of awe and wonder, imagining something that's based in, natural fact and sciences and such. Another example of just kind of a source of enchantment, I think, in a way, is the work of Carl Sagan. He seemed to mine a lot of meaning and a lot of awe and wonder from scientific insights with his series like in Cosmos, something that seems like Neil deGrasse Tyson has continued on. I know he's done another series of Cosmo show episodes and such, and also just generally is popularizing enthusiasm for science, which is great. One of my favorite examples from Carl Sagan, or a quote from Cosmos that he had, goes along the lines of, "The universe is within us. We are made of star stuff," meaning that stars that previously collapsed, the matter is what became the matter that's us, or at least in large part. Apparently that's the case. He says, "The universe is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to experience itself." I find that quote pretty inspiring of awe and wonder and pretty enchanting. So in summary, disenchantment doesn't have to be the end of the story. When we question a worldview, we might experience disenchantment, but we can also find leaning into the meaning and wonder offered by our new worldview that re-enchantment is also available in that sense. And as a bonus, any enchanting perspective from any other worldview, whether we used to have it or just ones we've never actually subscribed to, we can experience through the use of our imagination as well. So we kind of have access to both enchantment from our worldview and also from other worldviews in that way. Finally, as a humanist, I also feel like, if this process being somewhat, where there's experience of loss in the process of changing worldviews, I think it's worth it if we become convinced that we're leaving behind something that's not true or that's an illusion for the sake of having more of what's actually true. And this can especially be motivating and feel good and right if that prior way of looking at things that we believe is not true is something that's being pushed on people, causing harm to people, and making the world a less happy place for them to live. So I hope you found that meaningful or helpful. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please leave them below. I'll do my best to read and reply to them all. And if you'd like to continue on with this journey of meaning making with someone who's now more of a humanist and naturalist, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.